Fox 4 back in the courtroom for you today to get you answers for day 2 of the first of 2 murder trials scheduled for the death of Dr. Teresa Sievers. Now, the jury still hasn't been chosen for the first trial for the first suspect in this round. We've got complete team coverage. We've had a reporter in the courtroom. We've also got a legal expert we're talking to and our own Court TV correspondent who's keeping an eye on this case. And coordinating it all is Fox 4 anchor Jane Monreal outside the Lee County Courthouse where it's all going on with more on what's going into selecting this first jury in this first trial. Jane?
Patrick, 2 new groups of jurors were weeded through today and a lot to get through. But first, let's go ahead and recap yesterday because that was pretty eventful itself. So we learned that Mark Sievers and Jimmy Rodgers are going to be tried separately. Judge Bruce Kyle ruled Rodgers would be tried first. He expects the trial to last 5 weeks. No timetable has been set for when Mark Sievers' trial will start, but we do know that he is on standby. All right, so taking it back out live here now with our own Sandra Rodriguez. She is our eyes and ears in the courtroom throughout this case. And Sandra, how many potential jurors have been questioned so far? And what are some of the questions that are being asked?
Well, in the 2 days, it's been nearly 200. This morning, 52 more came in. From those 52 potential jurors, it came down to just 18. And when they brought in the ones from yesterday, which was 32, 2 more were sent home. The 30 remaining combined with the 18 from this morning went down to 48, but they needed 60. So right now, right before 5:30, the judge did announce that they met those 60 jurors that they need to continue with the next phase of questions.
And so the first phase of questioning deals with hardships, basic, what would take you out, which is a lot of people being weeded through that process. So the second phase, we know a lot of the questions are going to range from marital status to having any kids. What is this, question about having any kind of moral or religious beliefs that might impact your opinion on this trial?
Well, the concern is that some people are against the death penalty, so they can't really give their answer to this, which one woman today, she did make that very clear from the beginning that she is a Jehovah's Witness, so she said she cannot judge others, so therefore she would not be able to be part of this jury.
All right, so she was dismissed?
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately. And about what else stood out to you in the courtroom, I should ask?
An interesting thing was this morning, right off the bat, the defense brought up some concerns over receiving a statement overnight that an inmate had given to detectives back in July, where he's saying that he overheard Sievers talking about taking a hit on a witness or somebody. And that was a concern for them. The state said that they received that statement last week, but again, they were not too concerned about it. They don't think it's a reliable source. Here, take a listen.
We're not sure he's credible. He's right now being prosecuted for threatening a member of the judiciary. And so we don't believe we can produce him as a credible witness.
All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our legal expert, Dr. Pam C. She's a law professor from Florida Gulf Coast University. Been lending a lot of interesting insight. I like it. What's the defense looking for then when selecting jurors, Pam?
Well, there's a lot of things you want to find. You would like someone who is certainly unbiased, somebody who has not yet formed an opinion, and possibly someone who might lean more towards either a defense side, if you're on defense, or towards the prosecution.
All right, so they are trying to make it fair for both sides.
Yes, they are.
And do the judge, defense, and prosecutor have to all agree to strike out a potential juror?
No. One single side. The defense has 10 opportunities. The prosecution has 10 opportunities to strike a juror for cause. They call it a peremptory challenge. So that if there is no reason at all, you could just say, I don't think I want this particular person on for whatever reason. Maybe we don't want a bunch of mothers on there. Maybe we don't want people who are related to police officers. Whatever the reason, or no reason at all.
Okay. So everybody has 10 strikes?
Correct.
All right. All right, Pam, we'll see you a little bit later at 6:30 to talk more about the trial. Thank you for your insight. And really, during this trial, Fox 4 will be there inside the courtroom as well as live outside to keep you posted on the day's events. You can keep up with the entire trial on air and online at fox4now.com as well as through the Fox 4 News app. Now, coming up in the next half hour, we're going to bring in Court TV correspondent Julia Janae. Live in downtown Fort Myers, Jane Monreal, Fox 4 in your corner.
Keeping an eye on the weather for you right now. Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley here. I feel fall.
You really do?
I'm very sensitive. I have a
You're
very
sensitive to the 1 degree drop in temperature?
Yes, and that like micro breeze. I'm like, whoa, it was like blowing through all my hair.
I love your optimism.
Thank you.
We're not quite there yet.
Technically, we are on the calendar.
Technically on the calendar, but you know weather does not pay any attention to the calendar at all. Right now, Storm Shield 4 Doppler tracking a couple of showers out there, especially in Collier County. That's where we've seen most of the rain this afternoon. Places like Golden Gate and Naples seeing some showers earlier today. Also, Marco Island seeing a little bit of shower a couple of hours ago. Temperatures are in the mid-80s now inland, but you get closer to the coast. With the exception of the areas that have seen rain, like Naples, they're in the mid-80s, but you get up towards the Cape, Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte, Northport, all into the upper 80s to near 90. Forecast for this evening, skies will be partly cloudy to mostly clear. Temperatures will fall through the mid-70s here by midnight tonight. We're tracking better rain chances and perhaps some of that Patrick Fall-like cool down here coming up next week. We'll talk about that in your forecast in a bit.
All right, looking forward to it. Thank you, Derek. We've got some new information for you on that active shooter scare that happened at the David Lawrence Center in Naples last month. It happened when employees called 911 after they got notifications about an active shooter on the campus of that mental health facility. Well, deputies searched buildings, but turned out to be a false alarm they found. Investigators say the alert system was triggered accidentally by a man dealing with a robocall at his home in Lehigh Acres. Can you imagine? Investigators say there are not going to be any arrests in this case after looking into it. At least 5 people are dead after a World War II era plane crashed at one of New England's busiest airports. 5 minutes into the flight, the crew of that B-17 aircraft told the tower they were experiencing an issue. They tried to land back safely at Bradley International Airport when it struck a de-icing and maintenance facility and burst into flames. 13 people were on board. The plane is owned by the Collins Foundation. We found this out. And it takes passengers on historic aviation tours. The aircraft itself is historic. And it was here in Southwest Florida in January. This is some of that footage for the Wings of Freedom tour that happens at Page Field in Fort Myers. Senator Bernie Sanders taking a break from campaigning for his health. The Democratic presidential candidate was taken to the hospital after he had some chest pain at a campaign event last night. Doctors say they found a blocked artery. They put 2 stents in there to open it up. His campaign says he's recovering. He's in good spirits as of tonight, but all of his campaign events and appearances have been canceled until further notice. A man will spend the rest of his life in prison for molesting a child. It's a case in Fort Myers. Back in August, a jury found John Fesh, a former soccer coach, guilty of sexual activity with a child by a person in custodial authority. In addition to his life sentence, Fesh will serve 10 years, followed by 5 years of sex offender probation consecutively. He also will have to be registered as a sexual predator for the rest of his life. On camera, several apartment buildings' cars damaged after a senior driver lost control of his SUV and crashed into this building. Happened in Coral Springs in Broward County yesterday. A woman who lives inside one of those apartments says she was with her son in that area just 5 minutes before the crash.
5 minutes would have made a difference. His bed is actually up against that wall. Nervous? Scared? I mean, obviously, it was 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes on the dot.
Well, that woman says she's now waiting on engineers to assess the apartment, just make sure it's still livable and safe for her and her child. In the meantime, she might have to relocate until the building is deemed safe. They got the plywood up there, as you can see. 2 people in the SUV were taken to the hospital. A heartwarming moment for this Florida man for his 93rd birthday. How strangers helped him swim in these beautiful Gulf waters for the first time. Plus,
I never seen nobody doing something like this.
No. Look at this wild encounter at a popular zoo getting a whole lot of attention online for all the wrong reasons. What one woman was caught doing on camera that got her escorted out of this zoo. You're watching Fox 4 News at 6.
Lindy Son. Live from the station that's in your corner. You're watching Fox 4 News at 6.
Breaking right now on Fox 4 News at 6, nearly 36 emergency response units on the scene of a brush fire in Lehigh Acres. This is an area where there are several homes. Fox 4's Rochelle Aline is right near this fire on Griffin Drive and State Road 82 with the very latest. What are you learning, Rochelle?
You know, Patrick, thankfully I can report the fire is officially out. I want to step out of the way and actually show you what we're seeing. It's out, but you can see fire crews are still on the scene. They're doing what's called mopping up. They're wetting the ground and making sure that nothing will pop up again. Take a look at all of that charred wood out there. We're hearing that this impacted about 3 acres of land out here. It didn't burn all 3 acres, but it impacted 3 acres of land. Again, that fire is now officially out. Thanks to the hard work of multiple agencies that responded out here. I want to bring in Amy Bolin with the South Trail Fire Department to kind of give us a breakdown of what they saw out here. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining me.
Absolutely. So when they arrived, they did see active flames and a lot of smoke, and it was moving towards all of these homes here. So our firefighters immediately they grabbed a water source, and the number one was to preserve those homes and then to make sure that the fire and the best way to contain it at that point. And they also found that letting the fire burn towards these homes was going to be the safest option, and then they would just put it out as soon as it got close enough, and then all the fuel would be removed and then the fire would go out.
Today was a pretty windy day. I was out here in Lehigh Acres earlier. Was that a challenge you guys faced out here?
Absolutely. So the wind originally was pushing it directly towards the homes, and then the wind shifted and started pushing it towards Hampton Park. So we had to have multiple crews in different areas making sure that we surrounded this exact fire and made sure that all the structures and all the people were always safe at all times.
And one last question. From the time we heard about it to the time the fire was out, it took about an hour, hour and a half. Can you talk about that fast response and the coordination between districts out here?
Absolutely. So the way Lee County works is that our districts, we came in, we had the North Strike team came in immediately, the South Strike team came in, and then South Trail Fire Department, along with all of the responding agencies that came in, worked together as a very, very close team, and they worked together in an amazing way to always keep our residents safe, and that's exactly it. So if they weren't here at this fire, they were backfilling our fire stations to make sure that if anybody needed a 911 service, they were always taken care of.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
So one last time that fire officially is out, largely due again to that coordination between fire districts really working together to put that fire out. They're not leaving the scene quite yet. Even though the fire is out, they're going to walk the perimeter and make sure that everything is completely out, that they've mopped up the area, wet anything that could pop up again as a brush fire. As far as the cause of this fire, they say that that's still under investigation. A lot of times they tell me that brush fires can happen out of nowhere. They're not really sure why they always pop up, but once we have that information, we will let you all know. For now, live in Gateway, Rochelle Aline, Fox 4 in your corner.
All right, thank you, Rochelle. Derek has been showing you how dry it is. That's got to be a factor. A 93-year-old Manatee County man in the Bradenton area was able to do something he's never done before in his whole life. His daughter tells our reporter Julie Salamone how she's going to cherish his reaction to it forever.
Years come and go just like waves hit the shore. Howard Fisher makes it to the beach when his daughter takes him. This time around, she is sharing a father-daughter moment on Facebook, the post going viral. In the post, she shares words from her father. Sandra, isn't it ironic? I have lived here 20 years and never once went in the ocean. Now I think I might like to, but I can't. Howard turned 93 on September 28th. His daughter took him to Anna Maria Island, strangers helping him out of a wheelchair so he could go swimming. His first time in the Gulf.
Salty, and I couldn't stand up because of the current. But that's all right. I sure didn't go in to impress anybody.
The Facebook post has more than 8,000 likes and reactions.
I don't understand it, what the attraction was to Howard Fisher. I don't understand it.
His daughter says while Dad may not remember every little detail, she does.
He just kept saying, "Isn't this great, Sandra? Isn't this great? And look at me, I'm floating like a cork." And then he'd say, "Look at the sky and look at the clouds and all these people enjoying themselves down here."
She remembers so many years ago, Dad first allowing her to feel sand between her toes. And now she's returning the favor.
I cherish every minute that I get to spend with my father. He's just the greatest guy to me. And I'm just so thankful that I still have him in my life.
All right, turned out to be another beautiful day across Southwest Florida as we take a live look at our Storm Smart Sky Cam tonight. Some hazy skies there from the pink shell over at Fort Myers Beach, looking out into the Gulf of Mexico. Looks like it's going to be a very nice evening across the area with that easterly breeze continuing to kind of stir the air up a little bit, make things feel a little bit more comfortable outside. We're still tracking, though, a couple of showers out there, which we'll show you on the radar in just a second. But want to make note of this. Naples hitting a record high today, 94. That beats the old record of 93 set back in 2002. So the unseasonably warm temperatures continue here across Southwest Florida, but we're getting some indications that we will see a slight cool down on the 7-day forecast. We'll have the latest on that and rain chances as we head into the upcoming weekend. Speaking of rain chances, we're seeing some of them now across parts of Collier County, especially down along Alligator Alley. Not quite as many as what we were seeing earlier, but you can see that a few of these showers have been affecting places like Gateway and Lely down towards, Golden Gate and Lely down towards Naples. It also looks like Marco Island getting a pretty decent shower there heading down 951. But temperatures right now are generally in the mid-80s inland, close to the lake, and also areas that have seen rain across Collier County down to 83 in Marco Island, 84 in Naples, but still much warmer where it's been drier through the afternoon. Upper 80s to around 90 degrees up towards Port Charlotte, Northport, Arcadia, Punta Gorda, and the Cape. And again, those temperatures will continue on the warm side for this evening, but gradually cool off into the 70s. A straight shower not out of the question through sunset. East winds 10 to 15. And then looks like overnight tonight, mostly clear skies with an east wind 5 to 10. And then those winds not quite as gusty tomorrow, but they'll be picking back up again here for tomorrow afternoon with that easterly flow continuing across our area. And we're going to be tracking, though, a cold front that's going to drop into the area, and that will enhance the rain chances a little bit as we head towards the weekend and the next week. It won't make it all the way through, but it will stall, pooling up the moisture a little bit closer to our area. Now, as far as the tropics, the only area that we're watching is this area of disturbed weather, and it has a low chance for development as it tracks off towards the west, headed towards the Yucatan Peninsula here by later in the week into the weekend. Only a 10% chance of development with that. Lorenzo is completely off the scene now, transitioning to extratropical. Caused damage in the Azores last night. Will bring strong winds to the British Isles, though, later in the week. Forecast for tomorrow, though, clouds and sunshine, very similar to what we saw today, and then we'll see a few more of those scattered showers during the afternoon. Chance for rain tomorrow about 20 to 30%, and then as we get towards the end of the week, we'll see a little better chance for rain, especially as we get into the upcoming weekend with slightly better coverage. Again, those temperatures this evening into the 70s will fall into the low 70s later on tonight, 91 for tomorrow with a 20% chance for rain. Same thing on Friday, and then slightly better coverage for afternoon showers and perhaps a storm heading into the weekend into next week.
This is really long. This is a really long 5K. This is not as usual.
That's what he was thinking. He was in the wrong place at the right time. How this little guy running in a race took a wrong turn and still ended up coming in first. You're watching Fox 4 News at 6. He's got the medal. You know, it's hard enough to win any kind of race, but this 9-year-old did it accidentally, going farther than he needed to. Cade says he was running a 5K in this Minnesota neighborhood, and it's something he's used to doing. He practices 3 times a week. He runs 2 to 6 miles at a time. But on this 5K, something felt a little weird.
I was like, oh, this is really long. This is a really long 5K. This is not as usual.
Well, it turns out he missed the turn for the 5K he was competing in. He ended up running a 10K instead. His mom was upset because she didn't know where he was, but she forgave him after he came in first. He beat the second place runner who only ran the 5K by a whole minute.
Because I knew that with that strong grip, she was going to be okay.
Good sign here on video. This traffic stop leads to a special delivery for a Southwest Florida deputy. We're going to hear how he helped a couple welcome their baby into the world.
A ballot initiative that would open Florida's primaries is being challenged by the GOP, Democrats, and the state's attorney general. But the group behind the effort isn't sweating it. We'll tell you why in just a bit.
On Fox. Live from the station that's in your corner. You're watching Fox 4 News at 6.
Fox 4 is staying on top of the 2 trials now scheduled for the murder of Dr. Teresa Sievers. Day 2 of the jury selection process just wrapped up for the first trial that's scheduled for one of the suspects. Prosecutors, defense, and judge all still working with that jury selection. Thanks for staying with us for local coverage at 6:30. I'm Patrick Nolan, along with my co-anchor, Jane Monreal, who's live outside the Lee County Courthouse with more on today's developments. Jane?
Patrick, when it comes to selecting the jury, there are a lot of things that are considered, factors that must be considered by all sides. Now, earlier we went over some of the questions potential jurors would be asked. Now we want to talk about, once they're chosen, what they could experience by up to this 5-week trial. We don't know yet if the judge will sequester the jury during the whole trial. And this means if they're sequestered, it means they're really living by some very strict rules while serving. According to uslegal.com, when a jury is sequestered, they are kept at a secret location, and this means they will eat, sleep, and be transported together. They're not allowed to communicate with anyone outside of the jury. They're also not allowed to use the restroom without being escorted by the bailiff. So let's go ahead and bring in our legal expert, Dr. Pam C. She's the law professor from Florida Gulf Coast University. Pam, what are the odds then that a jury is asked to be sequestered for the whole 5 weeks?
During the trial, it is not common to be sequestered. Number one, it's extraordinarily expensive to pay for hotel rooms for all these people, to pay for their meals every day, for transportation. It is incredibly expensive investment. If it is a high-profile enough case, which this one possibly could be, it's possible that the judge could order it, but that's the only way it could happen.
All right.
Once we get through the trial phase, then we go into the next phase of the trial, which is the guilt, which is looking at the penalty phase, where we're deciding what penalty there might be if he's found guilty. At that point, yes, the jury will be sequestered. And that's where the jury is going to have to be prepared for that. Are they prepared to be away from their family, their friends, their job for however much time it takes for them to make that decision?
The other thing they're being asked, Pam, is about being on a death penalty case, right? So will the jury not only determine the guilt or innocence of Jimmy Rodgers and Mark Sievers, but the actual sentencing? What goes into that, or how is that determined?
Well, let's say that let's say after the guilt phase, the trial phase has been completed and he's been found guilty. At that point, that very same jury will be called again to listen to additional testimony relating to aggravating and mitigating circumstances. That means, was it worse or better? Will there be a death penalty or will there not?
All right, Pam C. from FGCU, thank you so much for that information. I want to bring in right now Julia Janae. She is our Court TV correspondent, and you've been in there all day as well for day 2 of jury selection. Jury selection moving a little bit behind schedule, right? Why is that?
Well, it's less about it being behind schedule and more about the court taking its time and going through these jurors, the 34 who were told to come back because they would go into that next round, actually showed up today and they were told, we don't need you today, we're still getting through and we're still trying to get a number that we want before we start asking those in-depth questions. So they sent them home and they'll be back again in the morning where hopefully they will get to enough jurors so they can start asking those more in-depth questions.
All right, yeah, so go ahead. What comes next then tomorrow? Let's assume they have the numbers and can go into the next phase.
Well, they'll be looking more at how these potential jurors feel about the criminal justice system. If they've ever been a victim of a crime, whether they've committed a crime themselves, those are things that these attorneys are going to be taking into account on whether or not that's a person that they want to sit on this jury, because they have so many strikes that they'll be able to use to actually eliminate people from this jury. So they'll also be taking some questions about the death penalty, and we don't know if that'll happen tomorrow or happen the next day, but that is what we expect to be coming in the next couple of days.
Okay, so very easy questions at the beginning, just to see if there's any financial hardships or something that would prevent them from moving on to the next phase, and then it really just gets specific to start weeding them out.
Right, and the court has been so compassionate. The judge has really been making sure that these jurors won't be distracted by financial hardships or scheduling conflict or by something they may have already seen in the media. So they are first getting those questions out of the way so that they can move on to a much more the nitty-gritty, really, when it comes to this question.
Yeah, well said. Julia Janae from Court TV, thank you so much once again for your insight in the courtroom. And really, during this trial, Fox 4 will be in the courtroom with Julia, with Sandra Rodriguez. We'll also be out here outside of the Lee County Courthouse, just recapping the day's events with our legal expertise. You heard from Pam C. yesterday and today, the criminal justice professor at FGCU. You can keep up with this trial on air and online. You can do that on fox4now.com. as well as through the Fox 4 News app. And we will continue our coverage tomorrow morning, starting on Fox 4 News at 7. For now, I'm Jane Monreal live in downtown Fort Myers. Fox 4 in your corner.
All right, fortunately, things looking a lot quieter. We're only watching one area right now in the Caribbean. Lorenzo has since transitioned over to extratropical, so it's no longer a tropical system as it heads towards Great Britain and Ireland here by the latter part of the week. Now, this area of disturbed weather that you see, just kind of a big mess, kind of rotating around there. And it looks like this will eventually be moving westward. It's only about a 10% chance of development over the next 5 days as it enters the northern portion of the Bay of Campeche and the southern Gulf of Mexico. But again, that chance is low, and in either way, even if it does develop, it will not be a factor in our weather at all. But besides that, no other areas that we're watching right now. Your forecast is coming up.
Thank you, Derek. Actress and former political pundit Stacey Dash is pleading not guilty to domestic battery charges in Florida. She was arrested on Sunday at an apartment in Newport Richey, north of Tampa. According to the police report, Dash's husband had scratch marks on his arms. Ms. Dash bonded out of jail the next day. If you or somebody you know is the victim of domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7. We're putting the number for you on the screen. For a fourth time, Florida's Attorney General is trying to challenge an amendment proposal to the state's highest court. She's trying to keep it off the ballot for you to decide. Well, this time it's a plan to open Florida's primaries. This would allow voters of any party to take part in the primary elections. Right now, you have to choose a party and register with one to vote in the primary elections. And then the top two candidates advance to the general election where you don't have to choose a party. Anyone can vote. Well, despite the opposition, our state capitol reporter Forrest Saunders found out the people behind this proposal still expect you will decide this on your ballot.
While the electorate seems split on open primaries,
it's not a bad idea.
I don't think it's a very good idea.
The GOP, Democrats, and State Attorney General are actually aligned. All are challenging the measure before the Florida Supreme Court, calling the proposed ballot language misleading. Ashley Moody saying voters wouldn't understand the massive changes proposed.
In effect, what this ultimately would do is have a general election and then a general election runoff.
But the man behind the open primary plan, Glenn Burhans, with all voters vote, says he isn't sweating it.
And frankly, their arguments are wrong. And the Attorney General's argument in particular.
Burhans says his legal experts spent years crafting the amendment proposal, specifically tailoring it to court requirements. He sees it as clear-cut and thinks justices will too. Those opposed, Burhans feels, simply don't want change.
In short, they're afraid of letting all voters vote. It's that simple.
Moody has challenged at least 3 other ballot measures since taking office in January, including an assault weapon ban. Democrats calling her motives political. She's rejected the claims, saying she's just doing her job.
What we look at specifically is whether or not that summary language that will be on the ballot is clear.
This court challenge is expected to be the final hurdle for the initiative to get on the November ballot. It is expected to get the number of signatures required in the next couple of weeks. In Tallahassee, Forrest Saunders, Fox 4 in your corner.
Thank you, Forrest. Tonight, you're going to hear from the Collier County Sheriff's deputy who delivered a baby on the side of the road.
When she grabbed my index finger with her little hand and squeezed it, I knew everything was good. That made me feel good because I knew that with that strong grip, she was going to be okay.
He's talking about the baby grabbing his finger, and you can tell that Deputy Robert Pounds is a dad himself. Yesterday morning, he pulled over the car, which was speeding, quickly discovered the woman in the passenger seat was preggers and just minutes away from giving birth. His fatherly and law enforcement instincts kicked in. Deputy Pounds and his squad delivered the baby girl. Tonight on Fox 4 News at 10, you're going to hear more from him about this experience and how he plans to stay in touch with this family. A reunion more than a decade in the making. How this officer, who posed with this girl when she was a toddler, ended up getting back in touch with her, to recreate a version of the original picture. You're watching Fox 4 News at 6.
Live from the station that's in your corner. You're watching Fox 4 News at 6.
A Fox 4 investigation has discovered thousands of people have been ordered to stay away from guns under our state's new red flag law. It was passed after Parkland. But after digging deeper, our investigator, Katie LeGrone, found one Florida county is issuing a lot of these orders to kids. One kid as young as 8 years old.
Potential
It was this scene at Parkland.
Shots fired at Stoneman Douglas High School.
That inspired the state's new red flag law. 18 months later, Florida courts have temporarily stripped gun rights from more than 2,500 Floridians deemed potentially dangerous.
Do you have any firearms?
And we discovered at least 100 of them involved kids.
Have you had an opportunity to talk to your mother about this consent?
In one Tampa Bay county, more than 20% of all gun bans issued under